The janitor who saved the invisible man. The afternoon sun filtered through the cafe windows, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. In the corner, past the coffee machines and the chatter of customers, a door marked restrooms led to a world most people tried to forget about the moment they left it. Robert Morrison was on his knees, scrubbing the tiles with the same precision he once used for everything else in his life. His hands, weathered, scarred, and marked by 72 years of living, moved in steady circles. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner filled his nostrils, a scent he'd grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. Duke, his friends had called him in another lifetime. Colonel Robert Duke Morrison, United States Army. But that was before. Before his wife passed. Before his pension proved insufficient for the medical bills. Before pride gave way to necessity, and he found himself here, in a blue maintenance uniform, with his name stitched over his heart in cursive, Rob. The door swung open with a bang that made him flinch, a reflex he'd never quite shaken since Vietnam. "Dude, this place is gross," a teenage voice announced, followed by laughter. 3 of them stumbled in, boys around 17 or 18, dressed in expensive sneakers and designer hoodies, phones already out and recording each other. Yo, check this out," the tallest one, wearing a backwards cap, pointed his camera at Robert. "Bro is like 100 years old and still cleaning toilets. That's crazy." Robert kept scrubbing, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. He'd learned not to engage. People saw what they wanted to see. "Hey, old man," another one called out, the one with bleached hair. "You speak English? You need help? Want me to call someone?" They laughed, the cruel, thoughtless laughter of people who'd never known hardship, never faced consequence. "Make sure you get the corners, bro," the third one, shorter with acne scars, added. "Don't want our shoes getting dirty in this dump." Robert stood slowly, his knees protesting. He was tall, 6'2", and even now, decades removed from his prime, there was something in his bearing that made the boys instinctively step back. But the moment passed, and their bravado returned. "What's he gonna do? Report us to the manager?" Backwards cap sneered. "This dude probably can't even read." Robert's eyes, steel gray, unflinching, met the boy's gaze for just a moment. The boy looked away first, though he'd never admit it. "Whatever, man. I gotta piss," bleached hair said, heading toward the urinals. Robert gathered his supplies and moved toward the door. As he passed, backwards cap deliberately stepped in front of him, forcing him to navigate around. "Excuse me," Robert said quietly, his voice like gravel, the voice of a man who'd given 1,000 orders, though these boys would never know it. "Excuse me," the boy mocked in a high-pitched voice, and his friends erupted in laughter. The door closed behind Robert with a soft click. In the cafe's main area, he placed his cleaning caddy in the supply closet and took a moment, hands gripping the metal shelf, breathing slowly. In. Out. In. Out. "You okay, Robert?" Maria, the shift manager, asked. She was one of the few people here who treated him like a human being. "Fine, Maria. Just fine." But his hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of restraint. Those boys had no idea how many men he'd commanded, how many lives he'd been responsible for, how many letters he'd written to grieving families. They saw a janitor. Nothing more. The catastrophe. 20 minutes later, Robert was refilling napkin dispensers when he heard it, a sound that made his blood run cold. Crack. It was the sound of something structural giving way, followed by screams. He dropped the napkins and ran toward the back of the cafe, his old legs moving faster than they had in years. His training kicked in instantly: assess, react, execute. The screaming was coming from the storage area behind the kitchen, where the cafe's owner had recently had renovation work done. Robert burst through the door to find chaos. The floor had partially collapsed into the basement below, rotten support beams finally giving way. And there, clinging to a broken pipe, dangling 15 feet above a concrete floor littered with broken furniture and exposed rebar, was Backwards Cap. "Help! Somebody help me," the boy screamed, his voice no longer cocky, but terrified. Pure, animal terror. His two friends stood frozen at the edge of the hole, phones out but shaking too badly to be of any use. "Call 911. Robert commanded, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. It was the voice of a colonel again, absolute, undeniable authority. Both boys jumped and immediately started dialing. Robert assessed the situation in seconds. The pipe the boy was holding was already bending, pulling from the wall. Water was starting to leak. He had maybe 90 seconds before it gave way completely. "Son, listen to me," Robert shouted down. "Don't move. Stay absolutely still." "I can't hold on," the boy cried, his fingers slipping. The building was old. The floor was unstable. Robert could see the cracks spreading from the hole, could hear the groaning of stressed wood. Going out there was suicide for a man his age. He went anyway. Robert, N.O. Maria had appeared behind him, along with several customers. But he was already moving, dropping to his stomach, distributing his weight. The floor creaked beneath him but held. Decades of combat training flooded back. Stay calm, move deliberately, complete the mission. He crawled to the edge of the hole and looked down. The boy's face was pale, streaked with tears, his eyes wide with terror. "Look at me," Robert said, his voice steady as stone. "Son, look at me. Not down. At me." The boy's eyes found his. "What's your name?" "J. Justin," the boy stammered. "Justin, I'm coming to get you. But you need to trust me. Can you do that?" The boy nodded, though his whole body was shaking. Robert looked around. There, an old extension ladder leaning against the wall, left by the renovation crew. He grabbed it, ignoring the protest in his back, and carefully lowered it into the hole at an angle, wedging one end against a solid support beam. "Someone hold this," he ordered, and two customers rushed forward to anchor the top. Then, at 72 years old, Robert Morrison began climbing down into the hole. "Sir, you can't," one of the customers shouted. "Wait for the fire DP. He doesn't have time," Robert replied simply, and kept climbing. The ladder groaned under his weight. The pipe above creaked ominously. Below, the concrete floor waited, unforgiving. Robert reached the level of the pipe and positioned himself. "Justin, I need you to let go with one hand and reach for me." "I can't." "Yes, you can. I've got you. I promise." Their eyes met, the terrified boy and the old janitor, and something passed between them. Trust, maybe. Or just the recognition of another human being who wasn't going to let him fall. Justin reached. Robert grabbed his wrist, the grip of a man who'd pulled wounded soldiers from rice paddies, who dragged his own teammates out of firefights. His hand locked around the boy's arm like a vice. Now the other hand. On 3. 1. 2. 3. Justin let go. For a heartbeat, his full weight hung from Robert's single arm. Pain exploded through the old man's shoulder, the one that had been hit by shrapnel in '68, the one that still ached when it rained. He didn't let go. With a strength that defied his age, Robert swung the boy toward the ladder. Justin's free hand caught a rung. Then the other. He was on the ladder. "Climb," Robert ordered. "Now." The boy scrambled up like his life depended on it, because it did. The moment his weight was off the pipe, it let go completely, crashing down into the basement with a sound like a gunshot. Robert climbed up behind him, each rung in agony, each movement precise and controlled. When they reached the top, strong hands pulled them both to safety. Justin collapsed on the floor, sobbing. Robert sat heavily against the wall, breathing hard, his shoulder screaming in pain. The revelation, 6:30 to 11 o'clock. The fire department arrived within minutes, along with police and paramedics. The café was evacuated. Justin was checked over, miraculously uninjured except for scraped hands and wounded pride. His friends hovered nearby, pale and shaken, their phones finally put away. Robert was sitting on the bumper of an ambulance, a blanket around his shoulders, as a paramedic examined his shoulder. "Sir, this is a serious injury," the young EMT said. "You've torn something. You need to go to the hospital." "I've had worse," Robert replied quietly. That's when they came, the three boys, walking slowly toward him like penitents approaching an altar. Justin got there first. His eyes were red from crying, his expensive hoodie torn and dirty. "Sir, his voice broke. "You saved my life. And earlier, I was so." He couldn't finish, couldn't find words big enough to hold both his gratitude and his shame. "It's all right, son," Robert said. "No, it's not." This from bleached hair, whose voice was thick with emotion. "We were making fun of you. We were recording you. We were treating you like you were nobody. We didn't know," acne scars started. "You didn't need to know," Robert interrupted gently. "You should have treated me with respect regardless. Every person deserves that. The janitor. The waiter. The person who holds the door. Everyone. But you're not just a janitor," Justin said. "Are you?" Robert was quiet for a moment. Maria had appeared at the edge of the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She was holding something, she must have gone to his locker. His old military jacket, the one he kept there, the one he sometimes held when the memories got too heavy. She walked forward and draped it over his good shoulder. The jacket was worn, but the insignia was still visible. The rank. The medals. The patches that told a story of service and sacrifice. "Colonel," one of the firefighters said, stepping closer to read the name tape. "Colonel Morrison. Are you? Wait. Are you the Colonel Morrison? Duke Morrison?" Robert closed his eyes. He hadn't heard that name spoken with recognition in years. "I served under you," the firefighter continued, his voice filled with awe. "3rd Battalion, 89 to 91. Sir, you're a legend. You saved my entire unit in the Gulf. The ambush at—" "That was a long time ago," Robert said softly. But the crowd was growing, and word was spreading. Someone was looking him up on their phone. "Oh my God," a woman said, reading from her screen. "Colonel Robert Morrison. Medal of Honor recipient. Purple Heart, 3 times. Silver Star. Served 2 tours in Vietnam, 1 in the Gulf War. Commanded," her voice caught. "Commanded the rescue operation that saved 217 soldiers trapped behind enemy lines." The silence that fell was absolute. Justin dropped to his knees in front of Robert, tears streaming down his face. "Sir, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." His 2 friends followed, kneeling there on the pavement outside the café, in front of this man they'd mocked. "I don't need you to kneel," Robert said, his voice rough with emotion. "I need you to stand up and be better. That's all. Just be better." The lesson. The video went viral, of course. Not the mocking footage the boys had taken, they deleted that in shame, but the news coverage. The local station ran the story. Then the nationals picked it up. Medal of Honor recipient working as janitor saves teenager. Hero janitor reveals decorated military past. The colonel who cleans toilets, one veteran's humble second act. Within days, Robert's story was everywhere. A GoFundMe raised over $2 million for his medical expenses and retirement. The Army reached out, along with veterans organizations. He was offered speaking engagements, book deals, interviews. But the most important thing happened quietly, a week later. Robert returned to work, his shoulder in a sling, but his spirit intact. When he walked into the café, the entire staff and a room full of customers stood and applauded. Maria was crying again. And there, at a corner table, were 3 teenage boys. They stood when they saw him. "Mr. Morrison," Justin said, "not old man, not dude, but Mr. Morrison. We wanted to ask if we could volunteer here. Help out. Learn from you. And we wanted to give you this," Bleached Hair added, holding out a framed photograph. It was an image they'd found online, Robert in his dress uniform, young and strong, receiving the Medal of Honor from the President. "We want to remember who we met that day," Acne Scar said quietly. "So we never forget what you taught us." Robert looked at these 3 boys, so young, so full of potential, so capable of growth. "You know what I see when I look at you?" he asked them. They shook their heads, afraid of the answer. "I see 3 young men who made a mistake and had the courage to own it. I see 3 people who wanted to be better. That's all anyone can ask." He paused, then smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "And yeah, I could use some help around here. Maria's got applications in the office." The boys grinned like they'd been given the greatest gift in the world. Maybe they had. As Robert walked toward the supply closet to begin his shift, Justin called out, "Sir." Robert turned. "Thank you. For everything." Robert nodded. "Thank you for giving an old man a chance to feel useful again." But that wasn't quite right, and they all knew it. Robert Morrison had always been useful. He'd always been a hero. He'd always mattered. Sometimes, it just took almost losing everything to remember how to see. 2 months later, Robert retired from the café. The fundraising had worked, and he was finally able to live comfortably. But he never forgot those boys, and they never forgot him. Justin went on to join the army, inspired by the man who'd saved his life. He kept a photo of Robert in his footlocker through basic training and beyond. The other 2 became regular volunteers at veterans organizations, dedicating their lives to ensuring that no one who served their country would ever be invisible again. And Robert? He lived quietly, spoke at schools sometimes, told his stories to anyone who would listen. But mostly, he just lived, knowing that his final mission, teaching 3 young men about respect, dignity, and the invisible heroes who walk among us, might have been his most important one. Because the truth is this, heroes don't always wear uniforms or medals. Sometimes they wear blue maintenance uniforms with their names stitched in cursive. Sometimes they clean toilets. Sometimes they save more than just lives, they save souls. And sometimes, just sometimes, we're lucky enough to recognize them before it's too late. The end. Remember, respect everyone. You never know whose life they've lived, whose lives they've saved, or what battles they're still fighting. Every person has a story worth hearing. Every person deserves dignity. Don't wait for a crisis to see the hero standing right in front of you.